We don't have any intro, yeah. Well, thank you very much.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the very first episode of Al Pacino's Prison Scene, the podcast where we look at movies that objectively have no deeper meaning and think about it. As always, I'm your host, Thomas Butler, and with me is my co host, Jake Ferrier.
Today is a new day, Thomas.
Today is a new day, Jake, and that is, of course, because we are discussing the 2005 Disney feature film Chicken Little. And I know for most people this is probably like a bottom tier Disney movie, but it's actually one of my favorites.
Wait, what are we talking about?
Yeah, who are we talking about?
Classic.
Moments like that make this, I don't know, it's just hilarious to me. I think my favorite part in the movie, which I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but when the mayor, he just goes, tic tac.
Tic Tac?
Yeah, I love that
Yeah.
so much. But before we go further into an analysis, which that wasn't really an analysis, but I'm going to summarize the movie real quick to the best of my ability. I did see it earlier today, so it should be pretty fresh in my mind. But the movie opens up with kind of making fun of your stereotypical storybook Disney movie opening, and even takes a jab at The Lion King, which I thought was kind of odd. But then it goes straight into the scenario where Chicken Little believes that a piece of the sky has fallen on his head, and everyone in the town is like, "Nah, dude, it's just an acorn." He's like, "No, for real, it's a piece of the sky," and they're like, "Nah, man." And then his dad's like, "I'm sorry, he's just really dumb." And then so after that, it jumps forward a year, and Chicken Little is now suffering the weight of being blamed for that incident, and everyone hates him for it, basically, and his dad is still ashamed. So much so that they're actually making a movie about it, and his dad tells Chicken Little to just hide, and his goal is never to be found. So then Chicken Little goes to school, obviously, and then, all this stuff happens, blah, 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 blah. And then he eventually, to make his dad proud of him, he decides to join the baseball team. And as a member of the baseball team, he actually wins the big game that wins the championship. And then he finally has redeemed himself to his father, except right after that, the sky falls on his head once again. So then he follows the piece of the sky, which takes his friend Fish back to the baseball field, where he finds a spaceship. And there at the spaceship, Chicken Little and his friends Runt and Ugly Duckling find this map that has circled planet Earth. So they believe the aliens are here to destroy Earth. And Chicken Little rings the bell to notify all the citizens, and they all come running, but then when they get there, the ship isn't there because it's invisible. So the next day, this little orange guy had left the ship, and he finds Chicken Little, and his name is Kirby, but he finds Chicken Little, and he shows Chicken Little that he is the son of the two aliens, and all of the aliens, the whole alien armada comes down and starts attacking the Earth, but all they really want is to find their son, And so at the end of the movie, Chicken Little gives them back their son. They're like, "Aha, sorry, we really wanted some of your acorns," and that's the gist of Chicken Little.
Well, and then they make a movie. They do make a movie.
Oh right, yeah. Where Adam West plays Chicken Little, and as Cluck says, it's Hollywood. They're not going to mess with a good story, so of course they portray it 100% accurately, and they're all in space, flying around, shooting through the spaceships.
And there you go.
And so that's the movie. So just to get into our analysis, before that, this is obviously based on the story Chicken Little, which was a European folktale originally titled Henny Penny. And I didn't actually read it, but
They do mention when Woolensworth is taking role, he says Henny Penny.
Oh, really? I didn't notice that. Well, there's a little Easter egg for you. But that was basically, the moral of the story is obviously in that story, the sky is not actually falling and aliens are not actually invading. So the moral of that story is to be careful who you believe. But of course, in this story, the sky actually was falling. Even though, by the end we learn that it's not actually the sky. I think, so the moral of this story at first glance would be, to trust your family. Because Buck is the one that doesn't trust Chicken Little.
Yeah.
But one of the earliest scenes in the film features this song by the Bare Naked Ladies.
Let's. I want to get to that. Okay. Let's go to the beginning. Before we say anything, let's talk about the opening narration. Do you think that is future Chicken Little?
Well, it's the voice of his father.
It is.
But at the same time, it doesn't really make sense for his father to be giving that animation, because I actually wrote that down, that it was an interesting note that Buck was the one giving the narration, even though it wasn't his story. So I
Yeah.
guess it could be future Chicken Little, kind of like looking back and
Yeah.
reflecting on it.
Or even if it was Buck, regardless, we still have this somewhat unreliable narration.
Right.
So
Well, even straight out the gate, because he can't decide how he's going to tell the story. Because
yeah.
of course, at first he does like the little book thing, and then he does like the Lion King thing, and it's like, bah, we've heard that before. And then
Well,
he goes into the actual opening.
yeah. In Don Quixote, the opening talks about how he doesn't, or I don't remember exactly who's narrating it, but it doesn't necessarily matter. But the narrator talks about how he doesn't remember Don Quixote's name or even where he's from. So kind of the Chicken Little kind of reminds me of that, in that like there's not really a set in stone kind of way of introducing a character. It's just kind of thrown out there with what they remember.
Okay, that's interesting. So are you saying that like maybe this movie is not 100% truthful?
Yes,
And that would
because
also,
and it adds to that because at the end they make a bit of a meta joke. Like Disney is a Hollywood like studio franchise,
right.
and they say, Hollywood,
Well, and that also, the fact that this is based on that story, the European folktale, that kind of
yeah.
speaks to that too, because they did adapt it, but it's almost completely different than the original source material.
And maybe that's the play on the original source material, where the original fable is talking about be careful who you trust, and then they mention big Hollywood, and it is based off this fable, but it is an adaptation that is almost completely different than the original fable.
Right. So whatever you do, you can't trust Hollywood.
Can't trust Hollywood. That's it. All right, we figured it out. Chicken Little's about
Well,
not trusting Hollywood.
that's just
It's been
one.
great talking to you guys. We'll see you next week.
All right, before you go, Jake, that's just one of many interpretations that I found in Chicken Little. As much of a surface level movie this seems to be, I actually through rewatching it, which full disclosure, this is a movie that I watched like maybe 10 times last year. So Chicken Little is one of my favorite movies. But when I was watching it this time, I was really trying to give it like that extra analytical view.
Yeah.
And obviously, there's several songs throughout the movie, but there was
Yeah.
only one
And that first
song that was written for the movie, and that is the song "One Little Slip" by the Bare Naked Ladies.
Oh, okay.
And
I didn't know that. I didn't know that when I was watching it.
yeah, so this was actually written for the movie, and there's one passage or one section of the song that I think like sums up the whole movie pretty well. He says, "Oh, it's on my phone. All right, just give me a second. I'm gonna keep talking so I can pull it up." But yeah, so the One Little Slip song, it plays like right after the original opening where we learned
Yes,
that
it's the title
Chicken Little,
montage
right.
when he's going to school.
So the lyrics are, "I get the feeling in this town I'll never live till I live down the one mistake that seems to follow me around. But they'll forget about the sky when they all realize this guy is about to try to learn to fly or hit the ground." So obviously that first part, I get the feeling in this town I'll never live till I live down. It's about Chicken Little trying to run away his past quote unquote mistakes, even though we, the audience, well, I guess we don't know at that point, but the audience knows by the end that that was actually true, that the sky
Yeah.
did actually fall on his head. But the second part of that, as I find really interesting, that they'll forget about the sky when they all realize that he's about to try to learn to fly. That to me kind of invokes Icarus when he escapes
Okay. Okay.
the labyrinth. Because the story of the labyrinth is like Icarus flew so close to the sun that his wings melted and fell.
Yeah.
And he fell to the ground and died. So what I think that is trying to say is basically, obviously Chicken Little's a bird, and birds should be able to fly, but he's also a little bird, so maybe he can't fly yet.
Yeah.
But as far as him flying too close to the sun, throughout the movie, Abby Mallard, otherwise known as Ugly Duckling, tries to get Chicken Little to get closure with his father, and instead of that, he tries to do a roundabout way of making his father proud of him. And I
Yeah.
think that's kind of his like wax melting, is he's not really owning his faults and his mistakes from the past.
Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, I know it's early, but honestly, I think that really like that's what the movie is about. Is just kind of owning owning who you are.
Right.
And I know I always say this, but this movie is about self discovery. It's about because Chicken Little. He tries, like you said, he tries to run away from mistakes. He tries to do this roundabout way of getting his father's acceptance, and in reality, he's just repressing, what is happening to him and what has happened to him. And we see so right after the game, they're at home. He's singing "We Are the Champion," um, and his past is behind him. Right, it's gone.
Right.
And then he goes to have this talk, and both of them, Chicken Little and Buck, are like, it's closure. We're done. And as soon as he leaves, because he hasn't tried to get that closure, immediately the past comes back to bite him.
Right, because the sky falls and he trips over it. But I'd also like to point out that that section of the sky is before the big game. Is the one that he like wishes on, and is like, I just
Yes.
need a chance. So maybe that's going back to the fable, like be careful who you trust, because obviously that star was not a real star.
Yeah.
It was the piece of the spaceship, which is the thing that's kind of haunted him, his whole life,
Yeah.
or for the past year at the very least.
And speaking of the spaceship, it's interesting. I don't know. Maybe I'm just like making connections out of nothing, but the spaceship kind of looks like a carousel.
Yeah, I could see that.
And I don't know if you've ever been on a carousel, but usually they just kind of go round and round,
Uh-huh.
which to me signifies this cyclical path that Chicken Little is on, especially with the scene where the sky falls down the second time. Is that and in the beginning he's stuck in this loop of just like trying to get out of. He's trying to escape his past, but he just can't do it. Bad things just keep happening to him. Most of the time aren't really even his fault, but he keeps trying to escape, but he can't. And there's that cyclical nature of just this bad stuff happening to him.
I think it's funny that you mentioned that, because actually I have another note about the second song that's in the film, and this takes place right after Chicken Little. Chicken Little's father had a discussion with the principal about how Chicken Little's nothing like him, and
Yeah.
on their way home, once they get home, like the dad like looks at this picture, and he's like, oh, whatever the mom's name, he's like, oh, mom, if only you were here, you were so much better at this. But while they're having that conversation, there's a song that starts to play called "All I Know," and it seems to be kind of
Yes.
about like
Yes. Yeah.
a cycle of abuse, because like the lyrics are, "I bruise you, you bruise me, we both bruise so easily, too easily to let it show. I love you, and that's all I know." Now, when I say abuse, I obviously don't mean physical abuse, because
Right.
Buck never once like hits Chicken Little, but also because earlier in the film, during the dodgeball scene, Chicken Little says to Floxy, he says, "Get ready to hurt, but not emotionally like I do."
Yes. 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 Which is very like how old do you think Chicken Little is?
Well, they're in middle school, so probably like 12, 13.
Okay. I mean, I guess you're kind of getting to that stage. Like that's a very like deep thing to say.
Right.
I want to say like emo, but that is like you know,
Well, and it definitely, through that statement, it seems like that hurting emotionally is something that he has been dealing with much longer than 1 year ago when the acorn supposedly fell in his head.
yeah. Well, I mean, I assume it started when Chicken Little's mom died. Because it seems like that his father is a very average person. He peaked in
Right.
high school. He was this great baseball player, super popular, but that's all he ever like kind of amounted to. Have you seen Essential Intelligence?
Yes.
So it's kind of reminds me of like Kevin Hart, in that where he peaked in high school, but after that it just kind of went down. And you know, so Buck, having this, popular in high school, thought he was going to go far, and I mean, honestly, what is do we know what he does?
No, we don't really see anything about any of the adults.
Well, but it seems like he is this very middle class
Yeah,
man.
he lives a bland life.
Right. He doesn't have the excitement from his high school days anymore. And I think that kind of that goes back to the song that second song is that's all he knows is that life.
Right.
He's living in the past, and I think that kind of like that plays into the relationship he has with Chicken Little, because Chicken Little, and that's why Chicken Little says baseball is what I'm going to try to do.
Right. Because it's all his dad knows.
Right. And so there's a lack of connection because Buck doesn't really know how to relate to his son. Because they definitely are entirely different people. We see Chicken Little he is tiny, but he's incredibly intelligent.
Right.
That title montage with the Bare Naked Lady song, he's got the lollipop with the gum where he gets stuck on the sidewalk and he licks the lollipop and he attaches it to the car, and then his pants come off, but then he takes a newspaper. Well, it is the bottle rocket thing where he shakes up the bottle and uses the rocket to go into the building. Then he takes a newspaper and makes pants out of it.
Right. And he gets shut in the locker and uses a hanger to open the locker from inside the locker.
Exactly. So they are two very different people. And when you have that kind of relationship, it's extremely hard to connect.
Well, and I would say, that we don't see very many of the adults or parents in this movie, but the few that we do, it's very clear that there's a generational gap between the children. Obviously, there's Buck and Chicken Little, like you have discussed. But then, there's one scene where we see Runt's mom, and it's right after the supposed the second alien appearance. Yeah. And Runt's mom grabs him by the ear and she's like, I'll take away your Barbara Streisand collection or whatever. And he's like, you leave Barbara out of this. So it's clear that she also does not really care about her child, or she doesn't go about it the right way. And then, of course, at the end of the film, we have the aliens, and they were neglectful parents as well because they left Kirby behind on this foreign planet. Yeah. Which at the end, there's this, I love this quote that Buck says to the adult alien. He says, "That's bad parenting, and I should know."
And I should know, yeah.
So I definitely think that is an important theme of Chicken Little is, that parents need to learn to accept their kids for who they are.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of that last scene, so he says, you shouldn't leave your kid behind. Now, of course, the aliens leave Kirby behind physically, right? But Buck leaves Chicken Little behind emotionally. Yeah. Think about that.
Yeah, think about it, baby. So, I mean, in addition to the whole emotional hurting thing, one thing that I thought was very interesting is obviously Chicken Little's friends are all in the unpopular category, as so greatly demonstrated by their PE teacher. But it seems to me that they all have some developmental issues, because you have Chicken Little, who's very small. I don't know if it seems to be that he's small for his age. You have Abby Mallard, who is ugly, and while that's not a developmental thing,
but it does place her as a misfit,
Right. And then Runt he's the runt of the litter, quote unquote, but he's this massive pig who can't even get out of his desk. And then of course you have Fish, who's kind of in a league of his own. And Fish to me is basically a savant in this movie.
Yes.
Because while everyone else is doing their thing in the dodgeball gym, he's making this tower out of newspapers and he pretends to be King Kong. And then later he's playing around with the piece of the ship, and he's the one who actually pushes a button and it flies off. Yeah. So he's figuring all these things out that no one else had the capacity to figure out.
Well, speaking of Fish, it's interesting that they would give him a voice. Obviously everyone at the end of the film, in the film that they make about Chicken Little, is beefed up, but Fish can talk.
Right, and he doesn't talk throughout the film. He's just makes bubble noises.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and I think that his character in the film also plays into the fact, because he's got the giant helmet in the movie within the movie, which would seem to imply that he has a big brain. But so speaking of movies, I don't really have like a meaning to this. The one thing I thought was odd was the inclusion of Raiders of the Lost Ark at the beginning of the film, because it's like the actual live action Raiders of the Lost Ark,
Yes.
whereas the rest of the movie is, animated animals running around town.
Well, yeah, and I think it goes even further than that. And like you said, I haven't really put this together, but that's one of the few times that like they mention something from our world, I guess.
Right.
And not only in some movies you get it that it just kind of plays, but in this film they point it out. They make it obvious that they're referring to that.
Right, because the thing rolls through the screen just like the boulder was chasing after Indiana Jones.
Right, and well, again, you said Barbra Streisand. That's another one.
Oh yeah.
And
From
then
Our
there's the song by Cake, "I Will Survive." That plays. King Kong, that reference there. So there's all these little references to our world that it's odd because this is an animated world full of animals,
Right.
and that they would reference something from our world. And it's not necessarily the reference, it's the way that they do it. You have other films, like let's say like Surf's Up. They reference, like, there's a few, the songs that play are obviously from our world, but like Big Z, he's reminiscent of like I couldn't think of a famous surfer, but they're reminiscent of real world
real famous
figures, but they're not actually from our world. And Cars, Cars is full of it. You have Daryl Cartrip, the Pope Mobile in Cars 2,
Right.
So you have all these things that are subtly referenced that you can obviously tell what they are, but it's not exact. Whereas in this film, it is exact, and it's pointed out.
Yeah, so I'm not really sure, what. I feel like there might be something to that because, as you said, it's done several times throughout the movie.
Yeah.
But I'm not entirely sure. Maybe that just goes back to the Hollywood thing. That's like you can't really trust Hollywood because obviously, Indiana Jones is a big Hollywood movie, and that boulder comes out of it and assumedly kills a bunch of people. I know they would see him like jump out of the way, but I would find it hard to believe that everyone made it out.
Okay, all right. Here, let me pitch this to you. So I've mentioned the possibility of an unreliable narrator, right? And we've mentioned, that Hollywood skews, the reality of, or really any film skews the reality of what's happened. So what if Chicken Little isn't a chicken, but when he's retelling the story, he's a chicken?
So would him being a chicken be like metaphorical?
Possibly.
Because
he's scared.
Yeah. Because like being a chicken is like a coward, and he obviously does not confront his father head on. He, like we discussed, he does use this as this roundabout way of going there. And another thing that I think adds into this maybe not being a truthful retelling is that Chicken Little and Buck Cluck do not have the same last name.
They don't. They do not.
And I guess it could be argued that Chicken Little was just a nickname that the other kids started calling him, but his father calls him that throughout the movie. So it's pretty well established, I think, that is his actual name.
Yeah, I think so too. And then another thing, there's two more things I want to make note that kind of maybe possibly signifying unreliability in narration, is that you had mentioned earlier with the dodgeball game. Obviously, this is an animation, it's a comedy, whatever, but the gym teacher says popular versus unpopular.
Yeah.
Now, I don't feel like, now maybe I'm wrong, who knows? I do not feel like a PE teacher would say, all right, I want all the losers over here and all the popular people over there.
Right. Well, maybe it's like this thing where you would Chicken Little is obviously an outcast at this time, and if we're going to go with the belief that it is him telling the story at an older age, then this is like, the further away you get from an event, the more distorted it becomes.
Yeah.
So maybe that is like him saying, I don't remember exactly what he said, but this is basically what happened.
Yeah. And then the second part is when he's late to class and Woolensworth is taking a role. And this just may be lazy writing or something, but all of the names rhyme with the type of animal they are.
Right.
Specifically, Morcupine Porcupine.
Who may be the best character in the whole movie. He's actually voiced by the director, in case you didn't know
I
that.
didn't know that.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Fun fact, I don't remember the guy's name, but the person who directed this also directed Emperor's New Groove. So in my book, he is one of the greats.
Okay, I'll take that. I'll accept that. So all of their names rhyme.
Yeah. But Chicken Little doesn't.
But Chicken Little, Abby, and Runt, and Fish, all four of those characters that the film revolves around, their last names don't, or their names don't rhyme.
And maybe that places more importance on them because they stand out against all of the other characters in the film. Which obviously the character names came from the original story, in which all of the names rhymed. But it is interesting that our four main characters don't share that trait. Because even
the dad.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Even the dad's name rhymes.
Yeah.
Or even like the mayor, Turkey Lurkey, which this is a great segue because I want to talk about him. I think Turkey Lurkey is symbolic of capitalist greed in this film. So not only does he never once think for himself, he's always reading off the cue cards of the Secret Service agents. But when Chicken Little is calling people to come see the aliens, he's like, all right, you got to come quick or you're going to miss it. Mayor Turkey Lurkey literally stops everyone from running into there because he sees a penny. And then Chicken Little's like, come on, guys, what are you doing? And then everyone runs past him. But then Turkey Lurkey goes back and gets the penny. And then he says, other than the penny, this whole evening was a wash. So that shows me that Turkey Lurkey does not actually care about the citizens of...
There's one more. There's one more. In the invasion, the first thing he does, he offers the aliens the key to the city.
Right.
That's the very first thing he wants to give up.
Well, he gives up the key to the city, then the key to his car, and then his Tic Tacs. So he's doing anything he can to keep himself from being zapped away.
Yeah.
But of course, putting this key to the city up first shows him just how much importance that holds for him, at least.
Yep.
So he's definitely not a servant of the people.
And honestly, it seems like everyone in this town is a bit selfish.
Yeah. Especially because of how they treat Chicken Little.
Yes. Yeah, like all the coaches, and even the connection that Buck Cluck and Chicken Little find after the baseball game is still beneficial for Buck Cluck because he was disappointed in his son. He was disappointed in Chicken Little. Then he has the game-winning play, and now Buck Cluck is like, that's my son.
Right. And the whole rest of the movie, and before that, he's trying to distance himself from Chicken Little.
Yeah.
So, the movie is also about these like perceptions and how your perception of things distorts reality. So that is obviously there in the film because of how everyone treats Chicken Little after the game and before the game and, after every event with the aliens, but also because of what we've been discussing about how, maybe he's not that reliable of a narrator and these things are blurred because they're memories of a child when he's an adult.
Yeah, yeah. If, of course, if it's, a retelling, which, honestly, I don't think it's gotta be. It's gotta be. With the narration, it's gotta be.
What, Chicken Little as an adult?
Yeah.
Well, it's never overtly stated. I've always assumed that it was the dad just because it was the same voice actor. But I think it is a shorthand in movies and probably more so in animated movies to have a child character grow up and then, they look exactly like or sound exactly like
Yeah.
their father. So that's definitely not uncommon, in film and TV.
Well,
Which actually,
let's take a look at some other Pixar films. Well, I guess Shrek is DreamWorks,
well, this wasn't
but
Pixar.
oh,
This is
sorry,
just straight Disney.
Disney. Let's take a look at like some other animated films. Notably, one that they kind of poke fun at is Shrek. And in the opening of Shrek, it's the book, of course, as they make fun of a little bit, but it's Shrek retelling a story. And then this one isn't. This one is a little bit deeper, but Cars 1, we start out with Lightning McQueen talking to himself, saying, "I am Speed, so I am Speed." And as he's saying that, it's dark, and it there are quick flashes of racing, signifying that like an opening narration.
Okay, so you're just talking about opening narration.
Yes.
Yeah, well, no, I would say that's definitely a hallmark of cinema. And, it becomes difficult once it's been done so many times to do it, in a way that people won't be like, oh, it's this again. Which
Yeah.
I really like the way Chicken Little does it, although I would say they were very clearly ripping off Shrek's storybook, opening.
Yes. Yeah. Which I don't. Yeah.
But going back to kind of like, maybe everything isn't as it seems. When I was watching the movie this time, I was trying to come up with like maybe not metaphorical, but a theme that could be attributed to the film because of the ship's cloaking tech. And I think the theme of like trying to hide the truth plays into that very greatly.
Oh yeah.
Because you have the cloaking tech, which is obviously hiding the spaceship up in the sky, but then you also have, like we discussed, Chicken Little is not being overtly true with his father, and other instances that I cannot think of at the moment.
Yeah.
Or even just the fact that the story itself might not be true.
Right. No, I agree with that. Kind of the cloaking device, the cloaking tech being a symbol for Chicken Little's decision to not be open with his father, which we have the scene where he finally does open up to his father.
Yes.
And in that very same scene is when the truth is revealed for everyone in the town.
Right. And he also confesses his love for Abby Mallard in that scene.
Yes.
So, that scene is probably the culmination. I know
Yes.
It's before they get Kirby up to the top, but it's, everything that Chicken Little has been maybe not striving for, but what the movie and all the characters in the movie have been pushing him towards. Which, another thing that I just thought about how everything is not as it seems and the truth is being hidden. The aliens are not trying to attack the people of Okie Oaks. They're just trying to get that one kid back. Right. Which is, I think, a great contrast to Buck Cluck and his treatment of Chicken Little. Whereas
not actually push him away, but like...
Well, yeah, but just how, how affectionate the parents were. They were like, hey, our kid's missing. And like the whole race of aliens came to save him. Whereas, as we discussed, the citizens of Okie Oaks are pretty selfish, with everyone, against everyone, not just Chicken Little.
Okay, interesting, very interesting. And that kind of makes me think about, it kind of plays into perception a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm trying to formulate this. Basically, so let's say we're existing in the Chicken Little's universe. We are perceiving the aliens to be harmful, and which in reality it's us. We're the ones who are being harmful, not the aliens.
Right.
That's the most basic of it.
And even the aliens themselves want to seem, larger than life, because when they get zapped into that, void or whatever it is, you have the alien father, who, appears on this screen. You see his three eyes, and he seems to be huge. And he's using what we learn is called the big voice to intimidate Buck and Chicken Little, which again is that perception of things hurting us. But I also think that because of the use of the big voice, the father has this Napoleon complex. And I think that might stem from the fact that he is so small. And that's another parallel, is that the aliens are also small and they seem to hold themselves to a lower degree. But Chicken Little, our main character, is probably the smallest. He's about this. Kirby's about half his height, I think, the alien child.
Yes.
But other than that, Chicken Little's probably the smallest character, and he, I would say, has the most heart of any of the characters in the film.
I agree. Okay, so let's bring up the Bible.
Okay.
So Matthew 7. All right, I'm just gonna read from the King James version. And this goes back to the idea of perception. I'm just gonna read. Let's see, just up to verse 5. So
right.
Matthew 7. Judge not that ye be not judged. Actually, I'm gonna read from a more modern translation. Hold on, let me find this.
All right. Well, while Jake's doing that, we'll talk about how all the alien characters seem to be just one color, and all the animal characters are several different colors. And I actually don't have any meaning by this. I'm just trying to fill the time while Jake is looking up that Bible verse. But, you have the cop one who's blue, and blue is obviously police. And you have the father alien who's red, and he seems to be very angry. And the mother is yellow, which is a more mild temperament.
Okay, now that you said that made me think I've got it pulled up. But,
okay.
And Inside Out.
Right, the different colors denote their emotions.
Yes, but anger is red and joy is yellow. Just like in
Chicken Little.
Chicken Little, yeah.
Interesting.
Which now I want to get back to that. Okay, hold on. Let me read you Matthew 7. This is from the English Standard Version. Judge not that you be not judged. For with the judgment you pronounce, you will be judged. And with the measure you use it will be measured to you. This is where it really kind of is important. Why do you see the speck that is in your brother's eye, but do not notice the log that is in your own eye? Or how can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye when there is the log in your own eye? You hypocrite. First take the log out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to take the speck out of your brother's eye.
All right, so what does that mean?
So basically, it's on the idea of this perception, kind of where before Buck Cluck will even give Chicken Little the opportunity to, explain his situation, he assumes that he's crazy, I guess. I don't want to say crazy, but before he's allowed to even give his position in the story of what happened, he's assumed crazy. And then again, after Chicken Little pulls the fire alarm in the gymnasium during dodgeball, the principal is talking about Chicken Little, and Chicken Little hasn't even been given the opportunity to, tell his side of the story.
Well, it's, now that you say that, throughout, I don't know if he says it like throughout the whole movie, but there's a few times where he says, all I need is a chance. I just need a chance to prove myself. And no one ever gives him that chance. Even at the baseball field, everyone was like, don't swing, dude.
Right.
And, he had to take that chance and swing, or he was never going to be redeemed.
Right. And so basically how that ties in is that all these selfish people, these rude, selfish people are not, before they're looking at themselves, they're looking at Chicken Little and being like, you're the problem. Before they can say to themselves, hey, what should I do to better the situation? It's, what can you do to better the situation?
Right. And I mean, Chicken Little, while it could be argued that, the end with the aliens coming was his fault, he is the one that saves the day. So yes. whether it was his fault or not, he is the one who makes it right in the end. Yeah. So, this character that everyone was looking down on throughout the whole film ended up being their savior.
Well, even up till then, the father, has to, after they have their talk, the father is saying to himself, like, he's like, it's crazy. I mean, it's crazy how much I trust you. He's basically convincing himself, even though he's seen this alien, even though he's seeing, spaceships come down and zap everything, even though what Chicken Little has said is true, he still struggles with believing him.
Right.
And then, honestly, obviously the story is a redemption of Chicken Little, but in the end, it looks like Buck Cluck is redeemed, but he isn't. Because still, even though Chicken Little was right, whatever, Buck Cluck says, he's my son. Okay, let me backtrack a little bit. So, the second time the sky falls, before the invasion, we have that scene with Chicken Little running around and stuff. Buck Cluck again is like, I'm sorry for him.
Right.
And then, in the end, he's like, he's my son. But again, it is still that selfish, like, attitude. Because he's done
yeah.
Now he's my son.
I see
what you're saying? Yeah.
So because, he was the one who saved the day, and now Buck's like, yeah, that's my son.
Now he's done something good, he's my son.
Basically, Buck Cluck was taking responsibility for every single thing Chicken Little does throughout the film, good or bad.
Yeah.
And that's why he felt the way that he did about his son. That's interesting.
So is there actually any character development?
I would say for Chicken Little there is, because he opens up to his dad.
Okay, I guess that's true.
And
there's a little bit.
That might be shallow, but I would say that it's there. But for the rest of the characters, I don't know. I mean, obviously Foxy gets, like, brainwashed at the end.
Yeah, but that's not really like...
No.
That's almost like a MacGuffin. Like, that's like a... It's like a plot device, kind of.
Yeah, it just happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. So, other than Chicken Little, I guess not.
Dang. Huh.
But I think there's one thing that we have yet to discuss that is, like, the focal point of this whole movie, or the thing that the whole movie revolves around, and that is the acorns. So, obviously, there's that sign that says best acorns in the universe. And I noticed this, like, not this time I watched it, but the last time I watched it, which was like last month.
Yeah.
But the last time I watched it, the sign, best acorns in the universe, is the camera lingers on that right before the song One Little Slip. So it is shown early in the movie. It's like, hey, these are the best acorns in the universe. But at that point, you don't know that aliens have been coming here to get the acorns.
Yeah.
So I was thinking that maybe, since these acorns are so good, they're the best in the universe, that it's supposed to represent, like, the apple in the Garden of Eden, because, the apple basically curses you with knowledge.
Yes.
And when you learn about the aliens is when you learn that they come here to get the acorns. So maybe the aliens coming to get the acorns and then ultimately revealing themselves cursed all of the citizens of Okie Oaks with the knowledge of their existence. Does that track?
Yes.
And then Chicken Little obviously knew something was up, but he couldn't articulate it because he didn't have the full story when he thought the acorn fell on his head.
It tracks for the... Yeah, it does. Are you saying this as a... Okay. Are you saying that Okie Oaks is a symbolic representation of the Garden of Eden?
Well, I guess maybe indirectly.
Not that, or that they're just parallels.
Probably parallels. Well, just okay. I was trying to figure out, the acorn is so prominent. I was trying to think of a meaning that could be attributed to that, and that was the first thing that came to mind.
Interesting. So, okay. See, now you got me thinking about like what. Because Chicken Little can't represent Adam.
No. Well, if anything, he would be Eve.
If anything, he would be Abraham.
Well, that's later.
Oh, I guess so, but like... It's still a Genesis.
Yeah. All right. So how is he Abraham?
Was just that.
Well, I
Well,
don't
I
remember
guess.
Abraham's story very well. He's the one
Or
that had to
not
sacrifice
Abraham.
his
Not
son, right?
Abraham. Not Abraham. Sorry, Noah.
With the ark.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how is he Noah? He's gonna save all the people.
Yeah. I mean that's what he does. But just basically, he kind of cleanses the town of like the wickedness that has followed him. I guess maybe.
Well, but if there's no character development, then does he
That's what I
really
was
cleanse
thinking. That's what I
anybody?
was thinking. Does he really cleanse it? Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe this movie is a paradox.
The meaninglessness the meaninglessness of life and how like it just there you go. There you go. The circle. The carousel is what it's all about. Is the circle. That life is meaningless and stuff's just gonna keep happening and that's it. That's it. Who
I
cares?
guess we did discuss earlier the cycle that was mentioned like in the song, but the movie also does go through a cycle itself. It starts with Chicken Little being like, "Bro, the sky fell." I know everyone's like, "No, it didn't." And then that happens again. He's like, "The sky is falling," and they're like, "Bro, not again." But in addition to like that being
Well,
cyclical,
the movie thing.
yeah. Well, I'm getting to that. But the movie does also open and end with a movie because there's a Raiders of the Lost Ark at the beginning and then the fictional movie at the end. But then also we see like there's that title card of 1 year later that happens twice.
Yes, yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That and both of those are preceded by them making a movie about Chicken Little. That's the movie I was talking about.
Oh, the one at the beginning, the crazy little
Yes.
chicken.
Yes.
Yeah, on the
They're both
billboard.
preceded by yeah, yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
And
Okay.
then, and then we can go a step further is that there is a cycle of failure, then redemption, then failure, then redemption
In
with
perpetuity.
with yes. So there's um, the sky falls the first time, baseball. Sky falls again, that's a failure. Then he saves the town.
Right. So each failure is followed by a victory.
It
Right.
really is circular. And maybe that's why there is no character development. Maybe the lack of development is the development. So we have this circular pattern that's about the difficulties of life, the tribulations that you face every day, but that you always come out on the other side. And that's why the meaning or the catchphrase of the movie is today is a new day. Because yesterday you failed, then you succeeded. All right, today you're probably going to fail again, but then you'll succeed.
Right.
And every day
Is a new day.
it's a new day.
So what we've gotten from Chicken Little is that life is cyclical and you're going to fail and you're going to redeem yourself. But at the same time, you get caught running from your failures. But you have to remember that today is a new day.
And you got to own up to your failure.
Right.
There you go.
I
There
actually
you go.
really like that. Just think about it. Think about it
For a second. Think about it.
All right. Well, I don't know. Do you have any more?
Before we end, I want to go back. There's two things I want to go back to. Number
Okay.
one, I didn't mention this, but it's interesting the camera work of the opening scene, how it's kind of like free cam.
It's kind of distorted too when it first starts.
Yeah, because there's a few scenes where like Buck Cluck is like standing there, and then the camera's like looking around at Chicken Little, and then they say something to Buck Cluck, and it pans up, and then it zooms in, and it's kind of shaky.
Yeah. Well, I think that was supposed to be like the first person from the reporter, was it not?
Yes, yeah, I think so, because then we see all the microphones come out.
And this is obviously made before this, but there's the whole like fake news thing. So maybe that was setting us up for this narrative that is now can be perceived as potentially false.
Yes. Okay, and then the last thing I want to touch on, I want to go back to Inside Out.
Okay.
I want to figure out. So we have the dad who was read as anger. Then we have
The mom.
the mom who's yellow. Okay.
And Kirby's orange, and then you have the cop that's blue. But I don't think we see any others.
Okay, let's see. What is hold on. What does Foxy Loxy look like? What is she wearing?
Like a dress. But the blue alien is the one that delivers the news to Foxy. So while he himself is not sad, he is delivering what is to be perceived as sad news to the community.
To the community, yeah. So okay, so we got anger, we've got joy, we've got sadness. I
mean, in Inside Out, there's also fear and disgust, but I don't know.
Yeah, I'm trying to think about purple and green. Now, Abby Mallard wears purple.
Right, but that's fear.
Yeah. I'm just going to look up characters, and now I really want to look at this.
Well, I would say it's not. I don't think there's going to be like a 1-to-1 comparison there.
Yeah.
It is kind of weird that it works for the parents of Kirby, though.
Yeah. Chicken Little's wearing green, which is disgust, not fear, so it doesn't really work.
Well, but if you switch his and Abby's clothing, then it does. Because she's wearing purple.
Yeah, but
Abby's wearing green.
Abby's not disgusted.
But everybody's disgusted at her.
Yes, very true. So if we bend the rules of the movie and if we make up an entirely new movie, it works.
Right.
Okay, there you go.
That's the moral here.
Chicken Little is the precursor to Inside Out. Inside Out is Chicken Little 2.
Just think about it.
Just think about it. Inside Out is Chicken Little 2.
I would also like to point out that Patrick Stewart agreed to be a sheep in this movie, and that just blows my mind.
I think Patrick Stewart makes a good sheep.
It did. It's just it baffles me that he would agree to that. But anyways, so I don't think anyone actually explodes in this movie. Nobody blows up, but people do get vaporized. So I think I'll give it a 3 out of 5. That's a close
3
enough to me.
I might give it a 2.5.
Are you still going with the vaporization, or is there another blow up that you?
I'll go with the vaporization. I mean, Chicken Little does blow up on his dad at the end.
Yeah.
Which merits a 1, but you did say vaporization, which is not blowing up per se. Okay. Final verdict, 2. 2 out of 5.
Okay. All right, so that was what we thought about Chicken Little. If you would like to let us know what you thought about Chicken Little, or if you have suggestions for a movie we should discuss on a future episode of Al Pacino's Prison Scene. Jake, would you like to tell us where they can leave that information?
Yeah, you can find us on Twitter at PacinoPod, or you can email us at Pacino. Oh, dang it. I don't know what the email is.
I think, isn't it PacinoPodcast@gmail.com?
I think so, but I don't remember.
Okay. All right, so that's all we have for this week. So I'm going to leave you with a think about it and stout and sauerkraut.
Stout and sauerkraut.